Cool. Well, thank you, everyone. I think it's quite appropriate that this topic is coming up since this whole conference is about evolution, evolve. And of course, what we're seeing right now is a lot of evolution in terms of the gender balance in our respective sports in the sea and in the mountains. And so I'm quite honored to be sitting next to these pioneers in both of their respective sports. I'm just wondering, I think that these sports, though, are still male-dominated. What I think is nice about both of you is that you have, of course, not let that hold you back, but I think on top of that, you're very vocal. I think you bring, it's not about being like the men. I don't think either of you aspire to surf like a guy or ski like a guy. I think you're very proud of being a woman. And so I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about what women bring to your sports.
Well, I have to admit that when I was first invited to speak here at Evolve, I thought I was going to be speaking more about environmental activism. And so I was like a little bit bummed when I saw that there was like a women's panel at first. But because sometimes I feel like women's issues, we are treated as this separate but equal category, where it's like always separate from what the guys are doing. And what I would really like to see is more equality and more natural integration, because I grew up with 3 brothers, so I'm always used to being with the boys. And so with that being said, I think that, going back to your question, that there is still a sort of disdain of femininity in our culture in general, and I think that there is a way, so then when I reflected more about the panel and this opportunity, I do think it is really next level to be having this conversation, and I want to see it grow and evolve, like you said, but I want to see that we can celebrate leadership and strength and femininity and not see those things as being separate, like not seeing that someone could be beautiful and that's the only thing they can be, but having a more enlightened view of what a woman can be. So I think it's a great opportunity, and I'm way more stoked now. Yeah.
I totally agree. Yeah, it's an interesting topic because it has become such a popular. It sucks that it's a trend. Like the Me Too thing is a trend, but it's not a trend. It's a bigger, I guess, showing of the state of our world, and that women are like putting our feet down and saying, okay, no more, and wait a second, like we are equal. We don't need to be separated, but we want to be integrated. And especially in the surfing world, I think women have an opportunity to really showcase their femininity in the most graceful and like from that really mothering, nurturing way. Yeah, women's surfing has definitely ebbed and flowed, but it's pretty much always been marketed to women by men, by heads of, the guys at the top are the guys, and it's not a lot of times the intrinsic female story that's being told. It's kind of a little twisted this way, so it looks a little bit better, But I think when we take our story back into our own hands, and that only comes from telling story, like we have to step up to the plate, but the plate's wide open, and that's what's so exciting, is that we're entering into a new time where there's going to be new companies coming in, there's going to be new films being made, and the more that women feel deserving and confident just because they are a human, not because they're a woman or they're good looking or whatever it is, but trusting in their presence and in themselves. Seeing a woman come into her power and believing in herself as someone that is deserving is extremely empowering to see, and I think we're seeing it all across our world in every industry. the light bulb is going on with women, like, I'm worth it. I'm worth something, and I'm divine. I move with the moon. I am part of this earth. And in that way, we have such a duty to take care of it. So we are the mothers, and may the mothers, like, rise. We got to get to work.
Hallelujah. So I'm just wondering, amen to that. Of course, you two are fully in your power. It's not as easy for every woman to do this, and it's not just her self-doubt that's keeping her back. There's societal doubt, of course, right? So I want to hear a little bit about some of the, I actually want to hear stories, an individual story, if you can think of one, of some of the challenges you've faced and how you've turned that into something positive. So I know that you, Carolyn, you've faced a lot of cyberbullying, and you told a great story in the Inertia of a guy asking if you were guided down those 90 chutes, right? So I'm just curious, how, I'm always asked also, like, all reporters, they all want to know the conflict. Like, tell me a story about how the man's kept you down. And I don't think it's that simple, of course. It's like daily microaggressions. It's very complex, right? But I just want you to make it simple right now. Offer a little story that might encourage other people of turning a negative into a positive.
Yeah. Well, I had a cyberbully, a cyber stalker, really, for 4 years that would... At first, it started with these really abusive Instagram comments, and I found that they would especially come out if I was writing about climate change or things like that. But it would also come to things that would question my professional ability as a skier. I mean, an example, and I'm sorry if there's any kids in the room, you might want to cover your ears, but it was like, how many dicks did you have to suck to get on the cover of those magazines? So that was an example. And so for 4 years, I'm sorry for the children here. I didn't want to I want to keep this G or PG rated, but and there was just all these different. And so when they first started coming up, my impulse was to just delete those comments as quick as possible and block the person and just try to move on with my life. And I told myself all these different things about this is what happens when you put yourself out there, and I should expect this, being a public figure. And then after 4 years, I got a phone call on Thanksgiving from someone I didn't know, and they just were yelling at me. And it's the opening of the film. We showed a clip from it. It's called Follow Through. And like, I really wish that cyberbullying didn't have to be my platform. Like, I didn't choose that. I don't think anyone chooses that, because I invested so much emotional energy dealing with that, dealing with the police reports, with the documentation, with overcoming the self-doubt and the negativity and those really abusive, deeply hurtful comments. And I could have done so much with that energy. I could have started a whole company because I spent so many hours working on that. And so I really wish that I wouldn't have chose that. But there was a moment, so after that phone call, I was just trying to figure out how to deal with it. I just wanted to make it stop. And so I asked my community if they knew who the person was. And also with that phone call, I realized that all these abusive comments I'd been getting over the past 4 years, they were all the same person, even though they were from 20 different usernames, because they all had the same threads that came out in the voicemail. And so I asked my community, and I wrote publicly about my experience, and I was able to figure out who was doing that. And so it was really an interesting turnaround for me, because by opening up and being transparent with this thing that I'd been sweeping under the rug, that was how I ultimately got it to stop. But it made me, just with everything that's going on politically, I've been more encouraged to speak out about sexism and misogyny and these different issues, because I really believe that how we treat women and how we treat people says a lot about how we treat the planet. And if we don't take care of people, we are nature. We're not separate. And so we have to take care of people. We have to take care of the planet. And speaking up about sexism and climate change, they're not separate issues. To me, it's just about being a decent person. And so I would really encourage like, this isn't just a women's issue. Like, men have a huge role, and strong male allies can play they can be such a important part of the turnaround. And so it's just like, you see something, like you see plastic at the beach, you speak up about it. If you see this sort of sexist culture or these inappropriate actions, like, don't tolerate it and call your friends out, because I really believe that it's just our duty to speak up about these injustices.
Next question is about representation. And I think both of you are huge role models, and I'm sure you are always told that you inspire people. I was just wondering if you could, and you know, I firmly believe you can't be what you can't see. I know it's the case for my own story, but I'm just wondering if you could tell a little story of maybe a female role model that helped you, sparked an idea in your head of what you could be, or a fan, or somebody that you sparked something. And I think we had a beautiful example of that with Cindy, of course, in that last film, right? But I'm wondering if you could share any stories along those fronts and why it is important that women are out there representing.
Yeah. Well, when you say the word mentor, I immediately think of Cassia. Even though she's one of my best friends, she's also one of the biggest mentors in my life. I think it's important for our cultures to nurture each other without attachment to age, and to allow age to kind of dissolve to a point where you're just being human with each other. And it's really coming back to that, as you were saying. It's about being human and about being a decent human and having morale. And I think at the end of the day, morale is the only thing that matters. When we can either be nice or we could be rude. There is a spectrum in between, but Cassia, always encouraged me to follow my own path and to ride whatever boards it was that felt good. And in life, that's what we all need as friends and as mentors, just to pursue you and do you, because intrinsically, that's all the world needs, is for us to be happy with ourselves. And I truly think that if we can't be happy with ourselves if we're being cruel to the earth.
Okay. I'm getting the 5-minute mark. I'm just wondering, actually, I like what you said about the world needing, of your mentors, were your family men. I firmly believe feminism needs good men for us to make change. And so I'm wondering if you could also share a story of how a man has stepped up and helped you get to where you are.
Ooh, that's a good question. I need to think more about these examples to celebrate these, because as much as we have, I really believe that we need to talk about masculinity, and I recently heard a quote that says we need to call men in rather than call them out, because just having a strong male ally, and I guess just a really small example as I can think of is with one of my good friends. He's another ski mountaineer and adventure skier, and he just invited me on a trip one time. And just being invited to go climb up a mountain, we went down to Mexico and we climbed and skied Pico de Orizaba, which is the highest volcano in North America. We did it in a weekend. And just to feel included and to be invited to participate, it made such a big difference. And we sort of planned the trip together, and he listened to my advice, and we kind of were co-leaders. And that example, it's a really small thing, but it made a huge difference in how I felt about myself, and to be part of a team and to be part of a crew. I mean, that's what we're all looking for. So it's really simple. Just invite someone to participate.
Absolutely, yes. Invite someone, everyone out there. Let's talk for a moment about pay parity, hot button topic. should we get paid the same as men?
Do you think so, Sachi? I'm curious. Well, you have a lot going on.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's something that the whole world sees. You know, it's not just in America. It's in my life. I'm sure it's in your life. It's frustrating. It's fuel to the fire. But we're growing, and the light is coming on, and all we can do is be the light. We don't have another choice. We have to be the light.
Yeah, I really believe women should get paid the same for the same work. And as much as things are progressing, and we're seeing more women in these roles in film and in magazines and in media, but when you look at the top, you still see that a lot of the heads of the companies and a lot of the filmmakers and directors and the people operating the cameras and that are working behind the scenes are men. And so it's not enough just to have representation in media. I want to see women reach the highest levels of leadership across in outdoor sports and action sports and in other industries. And I really want to encourage and set an example to other women to stay the course and to stick with it, even though people are going to constantly question your qualification and your legitimacy to be there. Yeah.
Woo! I also was really excited to ask both of you, since you both have experience both in the mountains and the sea, but from what I've seen in outdoor sports, it seems to me like climbing and mountain sports are about 20 years ahead of surfing in terms of the progress of representation, and that's just I've had that conversation with other people. I'm wondering if you agree or if you see a difference in the sports and why you think that is, or what we can learn from.
I think women surfing kind of, you're not wearing much clothes, so it's obviously going to be a bit more, there's more sexism. And I think it's really been played to, not necessarily for the female culture's benefit. So I think in surfing we have a lot of work to do in catching up to the mountain sports that are praising their women, and the women are pushing the game. Not saying that the women in surfing aren't pushing the game. They are. It's incredible. It is beyond what I mean, Paige. I think we all can give our, hands up to Paige. But there's women, all over the world that are breaking boundaries and doing things that we never thought possible, and doing things very femininely and gracefully. And I'm just really excited to see what the future has to hold, because I think we're like washing away this preconceived notion of what we're meant to look like, and we're starting to create it again and feel it and flow with it. So
I don't know if I would agree with you that, I think like if you break down mountain sports into more distinct categories, you have climbing, but then in skiing and snow sports, which is where I'm mostly in, I still see that it's not really, I think that there's more, I think you guys, you girls have it better than, I don't know, that's my perception. I mean, the grass is always greener, but I do see when I was building my career, I've been doing this for 12 years, and I've been asked to take my clothes off for photo shoots so many times, and it's really discouraging when that's how they want to show you. And that's changed a little bit, but what I really see is a lot of teams still just have the token female, and that creates such an intensely competitive culture within women that we can't support each other when we're vying for that one position. So what I'd like to see happen is don't just sponsor me, but sponsor me and my best friend who lives in my area, so that I have a buddy to train with, go on trips with. That would be a real game changer for me. Yeah.
You.
It's not on.
Mic's not on. Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to throw it back out to the audience again. Can it still be microphone from you, Sasha? Thank you.
Do we have anybody in the audience who has any questions right now? I'm sure there's plenty of people. We got one in the back. Bear with me in the awkward silence, everybody. All right, stand up.
Thank you. I just had a question. I really appreciate what you said about how you can't be what you can't see, and also about the importance of allies. And I think that at this time, in this renaissance of feminism, we have a really amazing opportunity to kind of widen that net, to bring more people into the fold. And I'm wondering what you're doing to include more women of color and include more socioeconomic areas, and if that's not on your radar, what do you think you can do to kind of change that and bring even more people into this?
Thank you so much for your question. On my personal level, the work that we've been doing with Changing Tides Foundation, we've done a couple women's programs. One just recently down in Dominican Republic, where we collaborated with a foundation called Mariposa, and they work with 150 local Dominican Republic girls from ages 6 to 18, and they can learn to surf if they want to, and they've got a group of girls in their surfing program, and so we went down there to work with the girls in their surfing program, and getting to witness their love for the ocean was the same stoke that I feel, was really, really cool, and made me want to continue sharing the gift of the sea with people that don't have access to it, because I do feel privileged that I get to live my life in love with the ocean, and I know it's medicine for a lot of people, and a lot of people could really benefit from it. I have a dream of hosting women's water weekends, where we can bring communities of women together to learn ocean skills, and bring in people that can't afford to get there, or that want to be there and don't have the means to. That's definitely a big dream of mine, and where that'll go to the top of our foundation list of things to start working on as well. Giving back and feeling equality with everyone, not just our neighbor down the street, but maybe 50 miles inland. It's our time to come together and to nurture each other and to see everyone as human. We're really becoming human again. I think everyone's feeling very raw, and it's time to join our hands together and celebrate each other.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question about intersectionality, really, between the feminism, environmentalism, and the next wave. And so I have this trip I'm leaving for in 2 weeks to go to Cho-Yu to climb and ski the 6th highest peak in the world. And I want to use this trip to talk about implicit bias in mountaineering and in outdoor sports. Because talking about these things, it's so uncomfortable, just like climbing a big mountain. And so I want to use my social media platform to highlight other people who are challenging perceptions of who belongs in the outdoors. So I'm building a coalition of partners, and I'm working with some friends, like my friend Rumap from Outdoor Afro, my friend Lila from Alpenglow Collective. They represent transgender, non-binary people in the outdoors. And I'm really just trying to build out a social media plan so I can turn over some of my content to highlight other people's stories, because it's like when people see me, they don't really think I'm going to be able to climb and ski a 26,900 foot peak. Something about me doesn't inspire confidence. And so it's frustrating. And I really want to show that mountains are for everyone. And yeah. So follow along.
I think we have time for one more question.
Yeah, I think we got time for one more. Ooh, a man.
So, as a father of 5, 3 girls, 2 boys, how can I, as a father, one, help my 13-year-old son and 4-year-old son help this? And how can their sisters, 16 and 18, do the same for their younger brothers?
Yeah, the men are very important in this role. As you said earlier, it's
Critical.
critical. It's about women, for sure, rising to feel equal, but it's also men celebrating the woman rising. And respect goes a long way. And it appears that you teach your kids that already. I see your beautiful family. In my family, it's always about celebrating everyone's uniqueness and not setting expectations too high, but also just championing morality and instilling that, and always coming back to expressing love. I think the most important thing for me in my whole life was that my parents always insisted on expressing love. Every meal that we eat, every single one that I eat, we grab each other's hands and we say, "I love you, squeeze." And that's the way I live my life. And it's helped a lot to live in that state of love.
Yeah, to add to that, I would say another thing you can do is to choose to consume like media and films, short films that feature strong female leads, and media that passes the Bechdel test, where there's two female characters that are talking about something besides a man. It's like a test of movies and TV shows. And so to really seek out movies that are directed by women and that have strong female leads, because I think a lot of how we think of ourselves is from, like, when we're little kids, Disney movies, and then through TV and movies, and there's not a lot that shows strong female leads. And so that's one way. And then another way is just to question masculinity and femininity and not be afraid to be a man and to show emotion, and to not like suppress the caring, compassionate, these other virtues that men are, I think, taught, or they tend to suppress.
I think we're wrapping up, but to the future.
Yes. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.